Thanks everyone for coming out Saturday night in Salt Lake City. Everything is inspired by the teachings of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is the founder and charge of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Om Aganati Marandasya Ganagana Salakya Chaksurun Militam Yena Tajmai Sri Gurave Namaham Sri Chaitanya Manavabhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutare Swayam Rupakaramayam Dadati Sra Parandikam Nama Om Vishnu Paraya Krishna Pastaya Bhutare Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachani Nirvishesa Sunyavadi Praskita Desadhani Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Our topic today is living a cause-centered life. There should be something that we're involved in that's bigger than ourselves. It's good to have personal goals and personal dreams, things that we individually want to accomplish, but if you're only focused on yourself, you're not going to reach your highest potential. We were created to help others, to be a blessing, to lift the fallen, encourage those that are down, to fight for those that can't fight for themselves, to honor the supreme creator of us all. You need to have a cause that you're passionate about, some way that you can make this world a better place and ensure your transferal and the transferal of your loved ones, as well as your students, to the spiritual world after leaving this present body. Maybe your cause is to support great organizations like this one, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, to build that children's home, to fund the ministry, to moderate a small Zoom group call once a week. The cause may be to break that addiction so your children don't have to deal with it. Cause may be to come out of poverty and lack and set a new standard for your family. The cause might be like ours, to establish spiritual oases in Salt Lake City, Spanish Fork, and who knows, maybe Ogden, maybe Logan in the future, places of pilgrimage for our areas. When you live cause-driven, you will do things that you would not normally do. Like what? Get up early in the morning, make sacrifices, show up when you had other things to do because you're committed to the cause. You don't wake up in the morning thinking, I don't feel like going to work. I don't want to deal with these problems. No, your attitude is, I'm on a mission. I have an assignment. It's not just about me. The world needs what I have. People are counting on me. I'm going to be a positive force for good in my neighborhood, among my peers, my family members, and on the job. The reason most people aren't happy is because they're ingrown. As long as you're only focused on you, you're not going to be fulfilled. Look around and see the ways that you can be a blessing to others. And when you give your time, energy, and resources to reach out to those who are suffering, to enlighten those who are in darkness, to lift up the follower, and bring your dreams to pass, you'll see favor in new ways. Now, the problem is you may be waiting for Krishna to bless you when Krishna is waiting for you to be a blessing to others. Can I tell you, the next level of your destiny is connected to helping someone else. In the 6th canto, Dadichi says this to the demigods when they asked him to donate his body to make a weapon to kill Vritrasura. This body, which is destined to be eaten by jackals and dogs after death, does not actually do any good for me, the spirit soul. It is usable only for a short time and may perish at any moment. The body and its possessions, its riches and relatives must all be engaged for the benefit of others, or else they will be sources of tribulation and misery. None other than Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself said, Bharata bhumite haidya manusya janma shartika para upakara. If you've taken birth in Bharat Varsha, in the sacred land of India, then you need, first of all, to make your own life successful, and then work to make others' lives successful as well. And in the purport to this, Prabhupada talks about para upakara, which means helping others. He says, of course, in human society, there are many institutions to help others, but because philanthropists do not know how to help others, their propensity for philanthropy is ineffectual. They do not know the ultimate goal of life, which is samsiddhir haritoshanam, so to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If all philanthropic and humanitarian activities were directed towards achieving the ultimate goal of life, to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they would all then be perfect. However, humanitarian work without Krishna is nothing, Prabhupada says. That religion which is best, which helps someone, the religionist, the practitioner, to develop love of God. If you put to test all kinds of religions in this formula, which is stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, then you'll immediately understand which religion is best. You don't have to go around asking people. Now, the best way to help yourself is to help others. And the best example of this self-sufficiency that we have is the sun. The sun is up there in the sky. It doesn't require help from the stars or the moon to illuminate itself. Rather, it is the sun which illuminates the stars, the moon, and every single nook and cranny in the universe. Sun takes nothing for itself, and everything that it has, it gives for the betterment of the universe. Following the example of the selflessness of the sun, which is called Raja Samasta Shoraha, the king, the most exalted of all the heads of all the planets, following that standard, we can understand that the highest perfection of life for a father, a mother, a spiritual master, a husband, or any other family member is to help others return back to home, back to God. And that is the most preferred welfare activity for the benefit of relatives. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur said that a Vaishnav is he or she who, by definition, has helped others become Vaishnavas, or devotees of Vishnu. An example of one who has converted so many others to Vaishnavism is who? Who?
His divine grace.
Who? Huh? More. We're talking universal. Sri Narada Muni. Am I wrong? Anybody heard of Narada Muni converting people to become Vaishnavas? One example of a time when Narada Muni converted one or two people in one shot to become Vaishnavas was that Daksha, the Prajapati, progenitor, had begotten 10,000 children in the womb of his wife, Panchajani. Those 10,000 sons, who were all of high character and mentality, they were known as the Haryasvas. Their father ordered them to all get married, to create households, produce children, great-grandchildren, grandchildren, in order to populate the universe. It was empty at that time, just getting going, and so it needed to be filled up, and he sent his 10,000 sons west to a place near the river Sindhu where it meets the Arabian Sea. It was a holy lake there called Narayana Sharas, and there were many saintly persons there. They began practicing austerities, penances, and meditation, preparing themselves to enter into householder life. However, Narada Muni happened by. He saw these boys engaged in very, very commendable austerities, but He said, why are you doing this? All just for temporary material sense gratification. Better you do those same penances and austerities in order to be released from the bondage of birth, death, disease, and old age. He thought since they were already advanced transcendentalists, they should just not go back home and stay where they are, make their lives perfect without the distraction of married life, children, economy, politics, and all of that. Krishna tells Arjuna something similar in the 2nd chapter, 49th verse of the Bhagavad Gita. Durena hiavaram karma buddhi yogam dhananjaya buddho sarana anvichan kripana means miserly, phala hetava. O Arjuna, rid yourself of all fruitive activities, karma, phala, by devotional service and surrender fully to that consciousness. Narada Muni said to the Harivasas, you're already 3/4 of the way surrendered. Why go back home, get stuck in the quicksand of marriage and children when you can just stay where you are, finish up the last 25%? Why go backwards when you're poised to spring back to home, back to Godhead from right where you're standing at this present time? Prabhupada says, only misers desire to enjoy the fruit of their work just in order to be further entangled in material bondage. Except for work and Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada boldly says, other activities are abominable. Why? Because they continually bind the worker to the cycle of birth and death. One should therefore never desire to perpetuate the cycle of work. Everything, yagnartat kamanonyacha lokayam tadartat kamakante mukta sangha parachana. Work should never be for entangling you, for further binding you. Work should be mukta sangha paramvajan. If you're gonna work for liberation, to be free from attachments, not to further enmesh yourself in those attachments. Prabhupada says, misers do not know how to utilize the assets of riches which they acquire by good fortune or hard labor. One should spend all energies working in Krishna consciousness. That will make one's life successful. Like the misers, unfortunate persons do not employ their energy in the service of the Lord. In the Katha Upanishad, it is said, Utishta chagrata praptam varonara karasya dara nisitam daratya durgam pantash tat kavayo vedanti. Please wake up and understand the rare and valuable boon that you now have, which is this human form of life. The path of spiritual realization is very narrow and sharp, just like the blade of a razor. Why this reference to a razor? A razor is meant to shave the hair from your face. If it's used properly with expertise, makes you look very good, very handsome. However, if you don't use the razor very carefully and diligently, you're going to turn up at the office with all kinds of cuts, and people are just going to go, oh man, they don't want to have anything to do with you. So the razor you have to be careful with because it can do great good, but inattention or carelessness can do great harm. So Narada Muni says, if you go back to Daksha, you will be disobeying your father. Now, to those boys' credit, they knew exactly what Narada was saying. You and me, we might think, well, Daksha was their father, and he told them to do this and come back. And so what is Narada Muni saying? To disobey. If they go back to their father, they'll be disobeying their father. Narada Muni and these young boys were so advanced, they immediately understood what Narada Muni was referring to when he talked about his father. He was talking about our spiritual father, our spiritual master, who will never encourage us to get entangled in materialistic, fruitive activities. And another father is the scripture. The purpose of all scriptures is to take us back home, back to Godhead. Jigupsitam dharma kritenu shashita shobhava raktasya mahanviratakam. Narada Muni himself, preaching to Vyasadeva, the compiler of the Vedas, he said, you've done a great disservice, because by compiling the Vedas, you have described all kinds of material benefits, and people will hanker after these benefits. They'll follow religion only in order to pursue the flowery words of the Vedas and miss the whole point, which is to be liberated. So Narada Muni says, one disobeys one's father, one's spiritual master in the scriptures, at great risk to one's spiritual well-being. The Hyasas immediately understood what he was saying, that one has to accept the instructions of the scripture, and if our natural father contradicts what the scripture is telling us, then we have to put ourselves at a distance from them. And every person gets a material body. Every animal gets a material body from a father and a mother. Every snake, every bird, every fish, every reptile has a physical father and a physical mother. However, when one gets the sacred thread, the Yajnapovitra, that's your real birth. That's the birth where you take your spiritual father who's going to guide you back to home, back to Godhead. So the word Shastra itself, scriptures, particularly the Vedic books of knowledge as well as the Bhagavad Gita, which is the essence of the Vedas, they all advise one to give up lesser duties for the greater duty of surrendering to Krishna and letting him shelter and protect us. Is it not? Sarva dhamman parichaga mam ekam saran aham tam sarva mokshayasi masucha. Give up all other so-called dharmas and duties based on the culture, based on the economy, based on your birth, based on your gender, based on your ethnicity, based on your conditional bodily temporary situation, and adopt, transcend, graduate to those Shradharma, those eternal duties, which will reconnect you to the Supreme Personality of God. And if you're worried that by following the Lord, you'll miss out, you'll lag back in the competitive race, keeping up with the Joneses, Krishna says specifically, Ma Suchaha, Aham Tam Sarvapapi. He gives you his personal guarantee that he will protect you. You'll not be the loser, but you'll be the gainer 1,000,000 times over. No one ever in the history of this or any other universe ever gave up anything for honoring and serving the Lord and became the loser because of that. So Narada Muni is telling the boys they should be adherent, they should be faithful above and all else to the principles of Scripture. And the advice of the supreme Veda Aham, Veda Sho, Vedanta Krit, Veda Vid, the goal of Scripture, the compiler of Scripture, the meaning of Scripture is that one should give up at least gradually materialistic life and adopt the principles of devotional service. And part of that purification is no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication, and no meat eating. These types of engagements, these types of prohibitions, which have been handed down to us by the Scripture and by our spiritual master, are the first steps in enabling a sincere and intelligent person to return back to home, back to Godhead. In human society, if you just are simply satisfied with your material mother and father, and you blindly follow their instructions without tempering or working into the equation the instructions of the Scripture and the spiritual master, then you're going to get stuck and you're going to remain in darkness. The material father and mother are important only if they're interested in educating their children to become free from the clutches of death. Sabhai Bhagavatam Rajo Pandavyo Mahalaka Balakridana Krishna Kridanya Adade. What does that look like? It is said that Marsh Prekit, the grandson of Arjuna, the nephew of Arjuna and Yudhishthira, the son of Abhimanyu, the grandson of Arjuna himself, throughout his entire childhood, he played with dolls of Krishna and Rama. He learned the musical instruments. He learned kirtan. He saw Arti performed multiple times in the palace. And guess what? He grew up to be a pure devotee of the Lord. Tata chapam pricham vimabhishe vishabhya viprajya kriyatam sarvatma maniyamanas chukitam sudatacham satabhyataham. At the last moment, he asked his father, Sukadeva Goswami. He was senior in years to Sukadeva Goswami, who was only 16 years. We can imagine Prekit was at least 30 or 35. But he asked his father, Sukadeva Goswami, what is the duty of all men, especially at the time of death? How does one become free from the clutches of Maya? Pita nasa syajjanani nasadsat yamochya samupetamitum. One should not become a father. One should not become a teacher. One should not become a spiritual leader, and unless one can save one's dependent from the impending danger of death. Now, a parent who does not know how to save their children has no ultimate value, because such fathers and mothers can be had in any form of life, even among the cats and dogs and so on. Only a father and mother who can elevate their children to the spiritual platform are bona fide parents. Therefore, it is said, everyone should seek out their spiritual father and practice listening with 2 ears very attentively. Tad viganartum sagurumevi gachet. If you want to know why we're here, what we're supposed to do, what the ultimate perfection of life is, what our duty is, then you have to search out a suitable person and hear from that person who will give you the scriptural conclusions. Your spiritual father will give you the conclusions of your scriptural father. And from these 2 fathers, one can without a doubt gain release from materialistic life and return back to home, back to God. Prabhupada says the Krishna consciousness movement is teaching this higher knowledge of retiring from materialistic life to return home to Godhead. But unfortunately, he says, parents are not very generally satisfied with this movement. He said, aside from the parents of our students, many businessmen are also dissatisfied because we teach our students to abandon intoxication, meat eating, illicit sex, and gambling. If the Krishna consciousness movement spreads, the so-called businessmen will have to close their slaughterhouses, breweries, and cigarette factories. However, Prabhupada says, we're like Narada Muni. Someone might say, well, why couldn't have Narada Muni just left well enough alone? Why does he have to stick his nose in other people's business? Why does he have to come between Daksha and his sons? Well, if you're up on a balcony and you see 2 cars headed for an intersection, and you see what those cars can't see, that unless they modify their course and slow down, they're going to crash into each other, how can you remain silent? How can you remain indifferent? You've got to try to get their attention somehow or other in order to save them from impending disaster. So Narada Muni has no other alternative than to teach whomever he meets how to free themselves from materialistic life, which is called Durga. You know what the word Durga in Hindi means? I don't know much Hindi, but I know enough to know that Durga means accident. It means collision. It means crash. It means injury. It means suffering. So we must call out to them. We must instruct them in the opposite of material life to save them from the repetition of birth and death. So Narada Muni therefore instructed the Hayashvas that instead of begetting progeny, it would be better to achieve the perfection of spiritual understanding. And guess what? After they heard Narada Muni, the sons of Prajapati Daksha became firmly convinced. They believed in his instructions. They agreed with his conclusion. They accepted him as their spiritual master. They circumambulated that great sage and followed the path following which one never returns to this material world. Their materialistic father, Daksha, had instructed them to increase the population, but their spiritual father, Narada, told them not to heed that instruction. He gave them the scriptural instructions that they should give up this material world, and they, as bona fide disciples, followed his instructions rather than the instructions of their father. And Prabhupada said one should not endeavor to wander to different planetary systems within this universe, for even if one goes to the topmost planet, Brahma Loka, one must return again. Therefore, the endeavors of fruitive activity, karma kanda, in the end result are a waste of time. Ah Brahma bhuvana loka purnar avutinarjita mam upecha tu kanteya purna janma navidyate. Even Brahma himself, the topmost living being within the universe, he himself has to die and take rebirth. What to speak of the rest of us. So this is the goodness, this is the heart of Narada Muni and all genuine Vaishnavas. They always chant the name, fame, glories, and pastimes of the Lord in order to deliver fallen souls back to home, back to God. Bhaktivinoda Thakur sang of Narada Muni, Narada Muni bhajavina radhika rama name nama amani uditahaya bhakata gita same. When the great sage Narada Muni plays his flute and chants the holy names of Radhika Raman, he immediately enlivens the Lord's devotees throughout the entire three worlds. And Prabhupada makes his statement in the purport to this song. It says, as soon as Narada Muni strokes the strings of his Venus, all the devotees begin responding, making a beautiful vibration accompanied by stringed instruments. The singing seems like a shower of nectar, and all the devotees dance in ecstasy to the fullest extent of their satisfaction. While dancing, they appear madly intoxicated with ecstasy. Some of them cry, some of them dance, and some of them, although unable to dance publicly, dance within their hearts. In the course of all this, Lord Shiva embraces Narada Muni and begins talking in an ecstatic voice. And seeing Lord Shiva dancing with Narada, Lord Brahma also joins in, saying, all of you chant, Haribo, Haribo. The king of heaven, Indra, gradually joins with great satisfaction and begins chanting and dancing. Haribo, Haribo, Haribo. So Daksha was very sad at the loss of his 10,000 sons, but he thought he'd try again. So he begot 1,000 more sons and ordered them to get married and have children. And these sons were named as the Savalashvas. They engaged in worshiping Lord Vishnu to engage children, but Narada Muni convinced them to follow their older brothers. That was a lot easier task because younger brothers always want to follow their older brothers. So they went the same way as the Hayashas. Narada Muni said, O sons of Daksha, you are all very affectionate to your elder brothers, therefore you should follow their path. And after saying that, it says they left as had intended by Narada Muni. They engaged themselves in practicing Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. And as you can imagine, when Daksha lost the second batch of his sons to the instructions of Narada Muni, he was not at all happy. He was extremely angry and twice foiled in his attempts to increase population. He cursed Narada Muni, saying that in the future he would not be able to stay anywhere more than 5 minutes. And Narada Muni, being fully qualified, fixed intolerance, accepted the curse of Daksha on his head. And Prabhupada said of his own situation, we are also trying to bring as many young men and women as possible to the Krishna consciousness movement for their ultimate benefit. But the parents of the young men joining this movement, being very sorry, are lamenting and making counter propaganda. This is the way of materialistic life. A materialistic father and mother want to gauge their sons in begetting children, striving for improved economic conditions, and rotting in materialistic life. They are not unhappy when their children become spoiled, useless, egotistical, consumeristic, selfish children, but they cry and lament when they join the Krishna consciousness movement to achieve the ultimate goal of life. And Prabhupada said this animosity between the parents and the Krishna consciousness movement apparently goes back a long time. Even Narada Muni, thousands of years ago, got in trouble for preaching. Nevertheless, Prabhupada says Narada Muni never gives up his mission. His mission is to deliver as many fallen souls as possible, and he continually plays his instrument, travels here and there, chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Like with Narada Muni, like with Prabhupada, your crown is going to be found in a cause. Your promotion, your breakthrough, your dream coming to pass is going to be found not in receiving blessings, but to the degree that you become a blessing to others. Now, are you fighting at current time for anyone other than yourself? Are you taking any risks, stepping out in faith, helping others to rise higher? Because when you're cause-driven, then you will see promotion, you'll see doors open, the right people show up. When you have a cause, you'll believe for big things. You'll pray bold prayers. Now, Narada Muni, he could have been satisfied with his own spiritual realizations. Prabhupada could have stayed happily in his rooms at Radha Damodar Temple. He was already a liberated soul. He could have thought, I don't want to get out of my comfort zone. Why should I take all this trouble to enlighten others? People may criticize me. Parents will curse me. I think I'll just play it safe. Can I say this tonight? Safe is not your destiny. Average is not what you're called to be. You're a giant killer. Believe to advance the kingdom. Believe to set new standards. Krishna didn't give you that talent, that personality, that courage just to go to work, make a living, feed your family, take up space, breathe oxygen. You were created for a cause. You are gifted for a cause. You are healthy for a cause. You are influential for a cause. You are anointed for a cause. Don't just build your kingdom, build his kingdom. Get involved in making a difference. William Lloyd Garrison was the greatest abolitionist in this country. He was a publisher of a newspaper called The Liberator. It was an anti-slavery publication. Garrison was a passionate man, passionate with indignation caused by the unbelievable, inhumane treatment of many of the slaves experienced. He hated slavery with every fiber of his being. And one day, one of his best friends, Samuel May, tried to calm him down, tried to chill him out. He said to Garrison, my friend, try to moderate your indignation and keep more cool. Why, you're all on fire. Garrison replied, Brother May, I have need to be on fire, for I have mountains of ice around me to melt. The only way that we can melt mountains of ice is to be on fire. The only way that Krishna can use any of us is when we're driven by a great passion, When we feel or hear his voice within our heart, showing us the great cause of devotional service that needs to be championed. Nothing is accomplished in this world by people who have no passion. That's one reason we need Krishna in our hearts as well as on our lips. But fire has another benefit. Fire brings new life. Krishna knows the fire kindled in his devotees' hearts will burn away their old priorities, their old addictions, their old ego, their old vanities. Fire destroys, but it also purifies. And we've had a lot of wildfires in Utah, California, and Colorado in recent years. Fires can be devastating. We have experience of that, but they also serve a useful purpose by creating new life. After a forest is ravaged by fire, there is new growth. The heat from the fire, in fact, triggers the dormant seeds to pop open and land in the charred and ashed soil, which is mysteriously rich, enriched enough to support new life bursting forth. Fire releases new life. Before our new life begins, we have to burn off the old karma from the past. Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter, 37th verse, Yatai damshi shamidognir, bhajmashat kurutarjana gyanagni sarvakamani, bhajma sat kuruteyata. As the blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of devotional service burn to ashes all material reactions. I don't know about you, but I've made up my mind. I'm not going to live comfort-driven. I'm going to live cause-driven. When we're comfort-driven, we don't have to stretch. We don't have to make sacrifices. We don't have to take any risks. When you're comfort-driven, nobody's going to criticize you. Nobody's going to talk about you. You're not going to have any opposition. But can I tell you, there will be nothing worse than to come to the end of your life and realize you never saw your crown. You never took your throne. It wasn't in the average. It wasn't in the routine. It was in the cause. The cause is connected to your crown. The cause opened doors to your destiny. The cause invokes favor on your life greater than you could imagine. We're not all going to travel the universe and convert thousands of youth at a time like Narada Muni. We're not all going to start big organizations like Prabhupada. We're not all going to lead the charge against an issue like slavery, but there are those people whose lives can be changed by your example. There is something you can do outside of yourself that makes your relationships better, makes your co-workers better, makes your children better, makes your students better. Find your cause and you'll find your favor. You can't help others without Krishna helping you. That cause doesn't come by itself. It's connected to your crown. You're going to see favor that you've never seen. You're going to come out of the ordinary into the uncommon, the unusual, resources you've never seen, influence and opportunity like you've never imagined. The greatness that Krishna put in you is going to come out of the cause. And when it's most difficult, the good news is that means you're close to your crown, close to your breakthrough. You have come too far to stop now. Krishna didn't bring you here to leave you. Now dig down, make a line in the sand, stay determined, stay focused, keep doing the right thing. What you're doing is for the glorification of God and the upliftment of mankind. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If you'll keep fighting for others, like Narada, like Prabhupada, if you reach back to lift up someone else, Krishna is going to shower you with blessings. Krishna sees you giving. He sees you helping others, sees you being good to people, delivering them from a life of bondage. You didn't have to. Nobody would have faulted you, but you answered the cause. You stepped up to make a difference. Now get ready. The king in you is about to step out. Your crown is about to show up. I believe you're coming out of the ordinary into the uncommon. Krishna is about to show you favor in a new way. Promotion, influence, divine connections, favor, blessings, dreams coming to pass, strongholds coming down, the fullness of your destiny in this life, next life. Go back to home, back to God. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Krishna, Hare Krishna.
How are you doing?
Good, good.